One missile got through. That is the sentence the Pentagon did not want to say out loud. And yet, buried inside the official reassurance that operations continue and damage was limited, that is exactly what the statement confirms. Iran fired precision ballistic missiles at Al-Udeid Air Base in Qatar, the most important American military installation in the Middle East, the command hub through which the United States directs air operations, surveillance missions, and combat sorties across multiple countries simultaneously. Billions of dollars in missile defense infrastructure surrounding it. And one missile got through. The base is still standing. The missions are still launching. But the world that existed before those missiles were fired is not the world that exists now. In the next few minutes, I am going to show you exactly what Iran claims happened, what Washington is saying in response, why the gap between those two stories matters more than either one on its own, and why this single strike may have already changed the security calculus of every government in the Gulf. Imagine you have a security system guarding your most valuable property. You have spent billions on cameras, sensors, and rapid response teams. You have told everyone in the neighborhood your building is untouchable. Then one night, someone shoots directly at it. Maybe the system stops most of the attack. Maybe some debris ends up inside the fence, but everyone on the street just watched somebody take the shot. And now every single neighbor is asking the same question. If they can hit that building, what does that mean for mine? Hold that thought, because that is exactly the question every Gulf state is running through its security calculations right now. Drop your answer in the comments. Does a strike on Al-Udeid change the equation for countries hosting American bases, even if the physical damage was limited? Let us rewind the clock. Al-Udeid sits southwest of Doha in Qatar. It is not just another airfield. It is the central nervous system of American air power across the entire Middle East. The base hosts the Combined Air Operations Center, the CAOC, which coordinates the full spectrum of American and coalition operations across the region: surveillance flights, combat sorties, aerial refueling, electronic warfare, intelligence collection, all of it fused through this one command hub. For years, Iranian commanders publicly warned that American bases in the Gulf were within range and would be targeted in a major conflict. The assumption in defense circles was that hitting Al-Udeid would be such a dramatic escalation that Iran would be deterred by the consequences. That threshold would never actually be crossed. That assumption has now been tested in real time. And it failed. Receipt number one, Iran's claim of precision impact. According to Iranian state media, this strike was not a signal. It was a calculated operation aimed at the strategic nerve center of America's military presence in the Gulf. Iranian commanders say precision missiles were launched in a coordinated salvo targeting critical infrastructure on the base. State media asserted that missiles struck important operational sections of the installation. Iranian military spokesman presented the operation as proof that even the most heavily fortified American base in the Middle East falls within reach of Iranian missile forces. The narrative out of Tehran is crafted with surgical care. It communicates one message to every audience simultaneously. We can reach and damage the most protected American facility in the region. Whether the physical damage matches the rhetoric is almost secondary. Iran did not need to level the base to win this moment. It needed to show the room that the shot could be taken, and it took the shot. Receipt number two. Washington's counter-narrative of limited damage. American and Qatari officials confirmed that missiles were launched toward Al-Udeid, but diverged sharply from Tehran's account. According to U.S. defense sources, air and missile defenses successfully intercepted several incoming missiles. They acknowledged that a ballistic missile struck the base and debris landed inside the perimeter, but the official line held, damage was limited, operations continue. Key command functions remain fully active. For American commanders, that messaging serves a precise purpose, admitting some impact while stressing continuity signals to allies and adversaries that U.S. military power has not been decisively weakened. But here is what that narrative cannot erase. The very fact that the Pentagon felt compelled to issue reassurances about operational continuity tells you everything about how seriously this strike was received behind closed doors. You do not publish statements about a base still functioning unless there was a credible threat that it might not be. The reassurance is its own admission. Receipt number 3. The gap between narratives and what it reveals. Iran says devastating blow. Washington says limited damage. Both narratives are doing strategic work. Iran gains by projecting offensive capability. The U.S. gains by projecting resilience. But underneath both stories is a reality neither narrative spells out directly. A threshold has been crossed. Before this moment, striking Al-Udeid was theoretical, a talking point in Iranian speeches, a scenario in war game simulations. Now it is operational history. The decision was made in Tehran. The missiles were launched. One reached the base. That precedent does not rewind. It becomes the new baseline for every military planner, diplomat, and government in the Gulf that is now reassessing what American security guarantees are actually worth. If this video is connecting dots you have not seen assembled anywhere else, hit subscribe right now. This is moving faster than any single outlet can track, and you need to be here when the next development breaks. Here is what most coverage is missing entirely. Iran spent decades investing in one primary military capability: precision ballistic missiles, not aircraft carriers, not a global deployment network, missiles, built specifically to hit fixed targets at range. Because Iranian strategists made a calculation 40 years ago that the United States would concentrate its forward military power in a handful of large, fixed installations across the Gulf. So Iran built the one tool that could reach them and waited for the right moment to use it. Now look at how Washington structured its presence. Thousands of troops concentrated in a small number of giant installations: Al-Udeid, Ali al-Salem in Kuwait, facilities in Bahrain and the UAE, each one a fixed, identifiable target in a region where the adversary spent 4 decades building precision weapons designed to destroy fixed targets. The strategic response was to invest in layered missile defense and assume deterrence would hold. Deterrence just failed, not necessarily because the interceptors underperformed, but because Iran concluded the cost of striking the crown jewel of American basing was a risk worth accepting. Once an adversary decides that shooting at your most important facility is an acceptable gamble, the deterrence framework organizing your entire regional posture needs to be rebuilt from the ground up. So what does this mean for you? If you live in a country hosting American forces, your government is quietly reassessing that relationship right now. Qatar finds itself at the epicenter of one of the most dangerous confrontations in decades. The base that was supposed to project stability is now drawing direct fire. Bahrain, Kuwait, the UAE, and Saudi Arabia are running the same numbers. Each government is asking the same question. If Iran fired at Al-Udeid, which facility we host becomes the next target? If you work in energy markets, the implications are immediate. The Gulf is the arterial system of global oil exports. Missile strikes on military targets inside oil transit states send shockwaves through prices and supply chains worldwide. And if you are part of a military family, Iran has now demonstrated it is both willing and operationally capable of targeting the most protected American facility in the region. The margin of assumed safety has narrowed visibly and permanently. 3 scenarios from here. Scenario 1 is managed containment. Back-channel diplomacy sketches informal limits on future escalation. Iran claims a major strategic victory domestically. The U.S. stresses operational continuity to reassure Gulf partners. The strike becomes a defining moment, but not the trigger for a region-wide fire. Even in this best case, the precedent is permanent. Every future U.S.-Iran crisis will factor Al-Udeid as a demonstrated realistic target rather than a theoretical one. Scenario 2 is regional realignment. Gulf governments quietly renegotiate the terms of American military presence on their territory. Some press for dispersal of forces to reduce target concentration. Others accelerate conversations with alternative security partners, particularly China, already deeply embedded in Gulf energy infrastructure. The American basing network that defined the region's security architecture for decades could begin contracting, not through dramatic announcements, but through gradual erosion of host nation unwillingness to absorb the targeting risk. Scenario 3 is the escalation spiral. According to reports circulating across multiple outlets, Washington is assessing potential responses with options that could include direct action against Iranian launch sites. If retaliation follows and Iran responds with additional salvos against Gulf bases or energy infrastructure, each exchange produces more damage, more casualties, and more pressure on Gulf governments to choose sides or expel American forces entirely. Energy markets spike violently. What began as a strike on one base becomes the ignition point for a regional conflagration that reshapes alliance architectures and the distribution of military power for a generation. Whatever path follows, the strategic ground has already shifted. The belief that Al-Udeid was effectively untouchable, the assumption that organized the entire American military presence in the Gulf around concentrated forward basing, has been tested publicly and found to have visible limits. Iran identified a vulnerability 4 decades ago. Built a weapon for 4 decades, waited for the right moment, and used it against the target it was always designed to reach. The neighborhood watched somebody take the shot at the most protected building on the street, and now every neighbor is running the same calculation. Did Iran prove that American power in the Gulf is fundamentally vulnerable? Or did U.S. defenses demonstrate they can absorb the hit and keep operating? Is this the moment Gulf states begin quietly hedging away from Washington? And when the next escalation comes, because in a cycle like this there is always a next move, will the defenses hold or will the margin get thinner? Drop your answer in the comments. I read every single one. Subscribe, because the American response decisions, the Gulf state recalibrations, and the missile defense reassessments are unfolding right now. This story is not slowing down. Do not look away. This content is commentary and analysis for informational purposes only. It does not constitute financial, legal, or geopolitical advice. Consult qualified experts before making decisions based on the information presented.